Okay, today's Q&A is about restaurant mashgiachim, and the question is, what do they do? What does a mashgiach do at a restaurant all day long? So, when a mashgiach is at a restaurant or a caterer or something like that, he has three main jobs. And those three jobs are ingredients, Kashrus Yisrael, and vegetable inspection. And I'm going to go through each one of them. Well, ingredients is sort of pretty obvious. The most simple part of running a kosher restaurant is to make sure that the ingredients are kosher. So the mashgiach keeps an eye on the shipments of ingredients coming in and pays attention, looks at what the employees are using to make sure that what they're using is actually kosher. And in this context, distributors are notorious for sending substitutes when they don't have the specific thing that you asked for. So even if the owner only asks for kosher ingredients, you have to check incoming orders anyhow to make sure no mistakes happens. Now, most ingredients that come in, it's pretty obvious. There's a recognizable hashgach on them. It's pretty obvious which one is kosher or not. But once in a while, there will be ingredients that come in with an unusual logo, or the owner wants to use something that has no hashgach at all, and then the mashgiach will need to speak to his rabbi machshir to decide, should I accept this or should we not accept this? The most sensitive ingredients are the meat, poultry, cheese, and wine, because those are ingredients where the kosher version costs much more than the non-kosher version. So that means the owner has the biggest incentive to try to use the treif version if he can. So because of that, of course, the mashgiach pays extra attention to those ingredients. But also in some hashgachas, they insist that anytime meat or cheese or one of these things come out of its original sealed package, it needs to be marked or somehow sealed by the mashgiach who's there, so that it always has seals and we can always know that it's kosher. That's something that some people do. Okay, then the next job the mashgiach has is Kashrus Yisrael, and that is any food which is not edible raw and might be served at a fancy event is only kosher if a Jewish person participates somehow in the cooking of that food. This is called Kashrus Yisrael, and it applies to so many foods in a restaurant: the meat, the poultry, the fish, rice, potatoes, pasta. I mean, lots and lots of things. Because it applies to so many things, most hashgachas insist that to avoid mistakes and confusion, anything cooked in the restaurant has to be Kashrus Yisrael. Rather than have each person in the restaurant trying to say, does this need Kashrus Yisrael? Doesn't need it. They just say everything needs to happen. Now, it doesn't help. It's not good enough for the mashgiach just to turn on the fires in the morning, because restaurant kitchens are very busy and fires blow out and they get turned off and this and that. So the mashgiach really has to be around all the time to relight fires that go out and make sure that none of the employees, the non-Jewish employees, do that instead of him. He's keeping an eye on it, and he's the person to be on hand to turn those fires on. Now, this requirement to turn fires on, is even more difficult or more labor-intensive when they have rice cookers, convection ovens, or microwave ovens, because each of those gets restarted all the time. A rice cooker, when it finishes cooking, you have to start it again for the next time. Convection oven has its own special situation where every time you open the door it goes off, and microwaves, of course, also you have to restart it each time you want to use it. So the mashgiach again has to be there to be the person to turn these things on each time it gets used. Now, last main job for the mashgiach is vegetables. That is because most of the lettuces, herbs, berries, and lots of other fruits and vegetables have to be washed or inspected to make sure that they have no insects in them. And depending on the restaurant's menu and how busy they are, this job sometimes could take many hours a day for the mashgiach. He's got to be, washing and checking lots of stuff. So not only does the mashgiach have to be trained in how to do the checking and the washing, etc., and very meticulous in the job that he does, he's also got to fit that in together with everything else that he's doing. I mean, he can't spend all day checking vegetables and not be able to keep an eye on Kashrus Yisrael or the ingredients coming in. Now, aside from these three main jobs, there are lots of other smaller jobs that the mashgiach does. For example, he does hafrashas challah sometimes. In some places, you have to keep meat and fish separate, do tefillas kalim, seal outgoing orders, and other things like that. There's other smaller jobs that the mashgiach has to keep an eye on. I mentioned the specific jobs they do, but one, like the overarching responsibility the mashgiach has, is to really be in control of what's going on in the restaurant. That means he can't have a situation where when the mashgiach leaves at a certain time and the owner can still come back in, or that the mashgiach is so busy with dealing with customers that he doesn't notice that people are lighting fires behind his back, or that I don't know, if the chef is able to get vegetables and herbs for recipes that the Mashgiach hasn't checked yet. So if any of those kind of things are going on, then all that he did is basically going to be a waste. So part of the Mashgiach's job is to be make sure that he has the right control over the atmosphere and of what's going on in the store, so that things work the way they're supposed to.